Good morning, Dr. Grove.
Morning.
How are you today?
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
I was making mention this morning of putting we're warm here today, and so I have family in the Midwest that are undergoing the polar vortex,
Oh,
and they're not putting on shorts today, so it's uh, it's a good day. And I chose a new background today, very fitting for our discussion about signs and symptoms of zinc and vitamin D deficiency, or sorry, vitamin C deficiency, and the great options from food and why they're helpful. Um, we have been seeing clients and patients for a long time. You, as a naturopath, understand way more than I ever will. I'm catching up slowly, but I didn't go to bless you,
excuse me.
naturopathic school. So I didn't learn all of these things, but I am using a lot of what I learned in my practice co-managing and with biofeedback, and it's super helpful to understand kind of why the body does the things that it does, and some of the symptoms of these deficiencies aren't widely understand, and I'll say widely meaning more like with medical doctor not necessarily understanding that it's just a deficiency. It's not really a syndrome or a disease.
Um, Vitamin deficiencies can manifest when they get severe enough as a diagnosable disease or condition. So, pellagra, B vitamin deficiency, will have scurvy, which is a vitamin C deficiency in its severity. So, we definitely can have some of those go to that level, but most of us, I, I swear, getting on the computer. Oh, listen, I can't talk. Um, we find that the the low grade deficiency is usually undiagnosed or unrecognized, and people don't see the accumulation of symptoms or the pattern as a deficiency. They don't feel good. They're fatigued. They bruise easily. They have heart palpitations. There's different things where they don't realize that it's related simply to nutrients. And when it comes to specifically vitamin C, the Linus Pauling Institute, way back when, I'm not sure exactly when they started with the research, but they did some really amazing studies on vitamin C and generally extrapolated with that into other vitamins using food or nutrients, just basic nutrients, not medicines, not drugs or constituents. They were just like, okay, vitamin C, it's found in all these fruits and vegetables. What can we do with that in high doses and use that as medicine? And that's that idea of food as medicine. And so they did a lot of research on high doses to heal various conditions. And vitamin C is the most popular and most well known that we're aware of. So a lot of people are actually aware, even if they don't realize it came from the research back by Linus Pauling Institute. And that led into a whole field of medicine called orthomolecular medicine.
Wow.
It is active to this day.
Well, and I recall seeing and using myself the zinc with vitamin C lozenges for like a sore throat. And then I know that there was a study done in Canada that looked at, was it zinc or was it vitamin C that was helpful to treat a sore throat or a cold. And their study showed it was zinc, not the vitamin C, but they're often linked together. Do they support one another?
They do support one another. One is a vitamin, that's the C, and one is a mineral, that's the zinc. And they are both considered antioxidants. So they help slow the degradation of tissue. They both help repair and heal. They both affect the blood. So you will see problems with iron carrying associated with zinc, and you will see problems with easy bleeding and anemias with vitamin C. So they can have some overlap in symptoms and repair, including the immune system. the There used to be formulas, you and I are old enough, remember some of the old school remedies.
Yes.
And so there used to be a simple immune support. It was called ADE zinc. That was it. And it was fantastic for people. Now we're more complex in our understanding with these vitamins. So you'll find a lot more formulas that are more complicated, not as simplified as that, but uh, or you'll find them in higher doses and individualized. So people will have to take, A separate from D, separate from E, separate from zinc. And like our food, it's not really meant to be that way, but we do find the combination of vitamins and minerals as in nature really helps us with basic healing.
Yes.
Yeah. Or
So
preventative.
yeah. So
Mhm.
so what would I some of the other deficiencies with zinc that maybe somebody would come in to your office or to the doctor with a complaint of, that you would say, "Oh gosh," to you it's like a neon sign. It says, "Oh, that's a zinc deficiency," and I go, "Oh my God, she's a miracle worker because it's a zinc deficiency." Because right, and that's kind of sometimes I think how people feel is that you finally have the answer, and because they've been suffering with this for a while. So I don't know. We were chatting the other day about the sense of smell and taste disappearing, and that was mind blowing to me. Brand new information. I'd not ever heard that before.
Well, let's bring that back to the current illness that's running around. And some of the treatment protocols that have come up is the hydroxychloroquine plus zinc plus an antibiotic, azithromycin. And what uh, it's being touted as, even though it's also being poo-pooed so that they can go for more expensive protocols, like the remdesivir that they're working on right now. uh, Hydroxychloroquine is an anti-malaria drug and it's very inexpensive, but they have found that that combination of the drug plus zinc drives the zinc deeper into the tissues, which is really optimal. We want that. But when you look at that, you might mistakenly think the drug is the cure and the zinc is helpful. It's the opposite. Zinc is the cure, the drug is helpful. So,
Wow.
and then people are getting secondary infections because they have lowered immune systems, and so you want the bacteria treatment, the antibiotic. So, what we're seeing currently is one of the signs that is listed for this illness is loss of taste and smell, and that is a classic symptom of a zinc deficiency. It's an odd symptom for any kind of a viral infection. So that's kind of stands out as a symptom that's odd for this particular virus. Not everybody has it, so you don't know. My feeling is it's not a symptom of the virus, it's a symptom that is enhanced when somebody's infected because it's an underlying problem that's just been brought right to the front for people. And so that person would very much be in the zinc deficiency category. Another classic symptom that would be oh my gosh, how'd you figure that out? Is little tiny white spots on the fingernails. It may not be on all nails. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. They often will grow out as the nail grows out, and then you'll start another one. It's rarely that you have multiple on a single nail. You're not spotted, but you might have one or two nails that have a spot on them. That's a generalized sign of mineral deficiency, but is specific for zinc. So that's a really important one. Sometimes you'll also have things like hair loss, and you'll have lowered immune. You'll have lack of appetite. You'll have tendencies toward anemia. Actually, a zinc deficiency can also lead to problems with uh, glucose metabolism, tremors. Those are less often obvious to people when they have them, but it's a mineral. So whenever you think of the nervous system, you think of minerals anyway. So that kind of leads at least the naturopaths or nutritional therapists to look at the nervous system and say, okay, what's missing from the body? It's a simple test to test. You can check urine or hair to test for that mineral deficiency. And in fact, the panels that are available is you can test multiple minerals at the same time and see what's going on. I prefer the hair test because it's one easier for people to do at home kind of thing. They don't have to collect 24-hour urine. It's a good screening test, but urine can be more specific for right now.
And I'm laughing a little bit because right now is probably the best time for a hair test because everybody who colors their hair,
Good
we now have
point.
a good 2 inches worth of stuff that isn't been colored because of this time that we're at home and not able to get out. I mean, I dearly hope that the hairstylist will be able to go back to work soon. But take advantage of the time and have your hair analysis done now because you really have the optimal while you've been eating at home, staying healthy, staying safe, but you've got that grow out. And so you'll get a pretty accurate, I would think, window of what's been happening for this last couple of months.
You're right. There's this, I can get hair analysis kits drop shipped to anybody, so they don't have to come in anywhere to get it. And it's a mail in test. So once you've collected it, then you mail it off. And correct, the 2 inches closest to your scalp are the most helpful, especially if you want the last 3 to 6 months evaluation of that. And the reason, people who dye or color their hair, it's not optimal to test that hair is because a lot of those will give you a false contamination or a false level because they will use sometimes the minerals and cadmium and heavy metals and other things. And so you're not really getting a good evaluation of your real mineral status. But I do this test all the time to find out overall. I've got osteoporotic women, I've got people on supplements, and you want to know, well, how good is this supplement working? So a lot of things, but zinc is really important for so much. And so not just blood sugar regulation, but it's involved in a process of at least 50 to 100 processes in the body to
Wow.
help us build protein, to utilize proteins, to build hormones, to like I said, regulate blood sugar, to not only transport vitamin A to where it needs to go, think of your eyes, but also to break that vitamin A down so we can actually get to it. So when you think of your eyes, your hair, your skin, your nails, zinc is going to be crucial for all that connective tissue. And that's why some of the things related to zinc deficiencies can also be related to bones, weak and brittle bones. It's not just a calcium magnesium issue. So zinc is a big deal with the immune system as far as us healing well, as far as our susceptibility to infections, our ability to recover from infections. And then because it involves itself in so many enzymatic processes, you can have problems with antioxidant effect and repair. So you'll have other things like loss of appetite, difficulties with, again, hair loss. I think I said sleep,
Mhm.
energy, but those are very vague, so they're not very specific to zinc, but they can be present.
So, what foods are high in zinc?
The good
How do
news
we get
on
it in our
that,
diet?
the most common are usually meat, eggs, and fish, seafood. Actually, shellfish rather than the swimmy fish is going to be higher in zinc. Meat can be beef or pork or chicken, and so it'd be like seafood, the animal meats, and then the eggs. On the vegetable sources, legumes, grains, nuts and seeds. Pumpkin is one of my favorite. Cashews. The problem with nut seeds and grains is that they should be soaked first. Soaked before you eat them, soaked before you cook them, because the phytates that are in those actually block the absorption of zinc. And
What's a
so
phytate?
it's an ingredient in a plant
Okay.
that will inhibit the absorption in us. So it's protective for the plant so that it doesn't lose these nutrients, but for us, it actually blocks our uptake of that nutrient. Because even though we're plant eaters, we can't actually get into every component of that plant and use it and
So
utilize it.
soaking it
Soaking
and
it will
just
help remove some of that protective layer in
soaking
that.
it for overnight,
Yeah,
soaking
just
it,
overnight. Yeah.
yeah. Even nuts that we would buy. So my understanding is anytime we eat a food, we really want to have it in its most unprocessed state. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
nuts,
Because,
seeds,
yeah,
legumes will be from the actual pumpkin, right? Open
right.
the pumpkin, take the seeds out from the pumpkin, not that you buy a can of pumpkin which has been processed.
Well, the more you process something, the more you lose the nutrients, either because of age and time or because of heat or sterilization, all the processes,
Mhm,
canning, all of that will lose it. And that's why when you're thinking of things from the garden, the best is fresh, fresh raw, assuming you can digest it. That's always a separate issue. Then frozen, then canned. We can because we need to preserve some food source for our winter months when we're not growing for the most part. But it's not as high a nutrient. It does help if you've canned and processed that you have and I'm talking about self canning, not the grocery store variety that's high in sodium. But you will find that if you use the fluid that's in there, it will contain some of those nutrients.
mhm,
That's not vitamins break down very easily in heat. Minerals not so much, but vitamins very much do. And so vitamin C, you lose some of that for sure, but it will be better than not having it. So part of the problem of why we end up with deficiencies is, I mean, even fat weight gain is associated with a vitamin C deficiency. But is that because we're eating a diet that's low in vitamin C and already prone to gain weight, or is it really because the metabolism is not connecting well with vitamin C, and so we get more belly fat with that? Excuse me. Um, a lot of our habits will cause the malabsorption of either of these nutrients, the C or the zinc, and because it's in our intestines, our small intestines specifically, where we absorb those nutrients. And so anything that damages that, and that is like rampant and chronic right now, is all these bowel inflammatory conditions. Um, so you could have a genetic or inherited tendency like celiac, Crohn's, but our irritable bowel syndrome, which also has an emotional component. But you can also have problems because you're taking, say, a proton pump inhibitor, so for heartburn, which in itself is a whole problem you've got to deal with anyway, so that you're not even on that. But they actually block the uptake of many nutrients, including B12 and zinc. And so being on that long term will cause a problem. And so that whole commercial where it's like, here, you want to eat this really lousy food. Well, take, Protonics or something and,
yeah.
belch, and here you are with your belly fat, and yeah, but now you can eat that food. And that approach is so wrong. It's like if your body says, I have this symptom, don't eat it. It's trying to
Yeah.
tell you, ow, and we're ignoring
Yeah.
it. We're just bypassing the signals our own body's telling us. But alcoholism, chronic alcoholism, chronically eating high blood sugar, glucose foods can cause a chronic deficiency in zinc. Um, in zinc especially, there's also a relationship with copper. So it's an inverse relationship, meaning if copper is high, zinc is low, or if zinc is high, copper is low. Copper is important for our blood and binding to iron, and also superoxide dismutase, which is a strong antioxidant to protect our liver and protect damage and toxicity from us. So copper and zinc need to be in balance in order to create that SOD, or superoxide dismutase. And we also, if you're copper deficient because you took too much zinc, perhaps, then you will have cardiovascular disease. Okay, there's definitely a dose relationship of copper to cardiovascular disease, and not hypertension per se, but the actual disease of the heart and circulation. But if you have too much copper, that now you're impeding the uptake of oxygen. Now, so when we're thinking about the current illness and, oh, we're, symptoms of loss of taste and smell and the diarrhea. Those are symptoms that can be a zinc deficiency as well. So people are like, oh, I need zinc, and they'll take 50 milligrams. Well, you can do that for a short time. You don't want to do high doses. You want to do, like, I'd say average 15 to 30 every day. So if you're going to supplement, be very careful. You can overdose. And as soon as you overdose, now you've created a problem with copper. And so you didn't actually improve your risk factors. You just created a new one. Okay. So there's always a balance. And that's why I recommend testing. Because a lot of people, if they reach for those zinc lozenges, that
Mhm.
they want to do, or the like Zicam supplement, which is a zinc based, and those are great, and I love them, and I think they're amazing for people. But sometimes a person is not a good candidate for that because they have plenty of zinc, and so that is just overwhelming the imbalance that they have. And so you always want it to be in some sort of balance. uh, they're water soluble, so if you overdose and you stop, you can reduce it. Vitamin C, same thing, is water soluble. So that the difficulty with vitamin C, which usually I think of C as the sunshine vitamin. So anything that grows in the sunshine and has sunshiny colors, like all those things behind you, the kiwi, the grapefruit, the strawberry. I recognize the grapes, but they're high glycemic, so that's not on my list. Papaya, mango, one of those I'm not sure is, but lemons, oranges, those are all high in vitamin C. And so if you want to eat the food, yeah, I'm all for that. Go for the food, especially if it's in season and ripe and not unripe and then I don't know how they fast ripened, whatever
Flash
they do.
frozen?
Flash frozen and then fast
Yeah.
ripened,
Yeah.
whatever. That doesn't have quite as much nutrients in it, but definitely if you want to do it by natural food, that's your option. Have something like that every single day. Um, or you can supplement. The problem is if we take more vitamin C than we can use right now, what will happen is we just pee it out. So it's better to dose your vitamin C repeated smaller doses throughout your day and build up your system. And you can, quote unquote, saturate the tissues. So if you do small amounts and do it over time, you'll build up so that your maintenance can be simple 1000 milligrams of vitamin C. And then you would only take extra if you were ill or you wanted to prevent or you needed a little extra at that time. The neat thing about vitamin C overdose is that not only do you pee it out, but you can also go to bowel tolerance to figure out how much you need. So if you take too much at one time, you might also get diarrhea from the vitamin C, gas, bloating, diarrhea. And it'll be pretty obvious. It's like, oh, I just took, 5,000 vitamin C an hour ago. And now I'm kind of like, oh, excuse me. So
Sure.
when that happens, it's not harmful. It's not dangerous. You're not going to do terrible things to yourself. Then you just go, okay, next time instead of 5, I'll take 4. And if you still get it, then 3. And then and you find the dose that your bowel will tolerate. And that's telling you right there and then what your one-time dose is. Doesn't mean you can't repeat it later, but
Mhm.
that's all you can take
That's what your
and
tolerance
use.
is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all you can use at this time. So vitamin C and magnesium are like that, where you will use them to bowel tolerance. And so it's an easy way to self dose and figure out and not take too much. Some people have a hard time with heartburn or acid with vitamin C. So those people I would recommend either do a liposomal vitamin C, which means it's been added to fat. So it ends up a little more time release and gets titrated a little bit slower in the body. It's easier to metabolize um, and get better absorption. It's that same, over time
Right.
idea. The or have them do buffered vitamin C,
Mhm. And
and
is
and
it a
that will help some of
problem
the
then
acidity.
for some if they take it late in the day and they're going to be going to sleep? So body position, they're now uh,
If they're
horizontal.
if they're prone to that,
Yeah.
I have found myself because I can sometimes go that way. Probably too much coffee, but I find that if I do like an emergency packet, which is a powdered vitamin C I add to water, if I
My
drink that
coffee.
in the evening, I don't have a problem with acidity with that. If I'm over full, I would, because that's like a hiatal hernia. Everything's pushing up. But
Sure.
and when you're laying down, if you haven't digested, it's going to cause some problems.
And so vitamin C deficiency, I remember, the stories that I read probably in grade school about why vitamin C was so important for people that were out to sea for long periods of time and they didn't have fresh fruits or vegetables and they had rickets or scurvy. And but can you talk a little bit about that and what other maybe not so uh, historical but in today's society, what we might see with vitamin C deficiency in children or adults?
So back in the seafaring times, a lot of time what was put on the ships to feed the sailors, because they'd be out on voyages for a long time and they didn't necessarily have easy access to food supply resupply. So they'd put these giant barrels of usually pickled or salted fish. And then they would also give them hardtack, which is like a hard biscuit. So something that wouldn't easily mold. So it didn't have a lot of yeast or anything like that. It was something you would like teething biscuits that we would have
Right.
today. But the problem with that kind of diet, it was extremely low in vitamin C. And what they found was that sailors were losing their teeth, losing their hair. That's the scurvy, bleeding from their gums, poor wound healing. And then the rickets is affecting the bone. That's the brittle bones that they would be getting. So it's not just vitamin C, but it would be associated with C, D, zinc, other nutrients. And so because the diet was so deficient in that, the only good thing they were getting if they were fishermen was that they would get fish and they would actually get some good oils with that herring, that kind of stuff, the nice fatty fish. But so what they found, and I can't remember who the researcher was or doctor was, but they found that if they brought some salted limes or lemons, a barrel of them, and I'm saying salted because they had to preserve them so they wouldn't mold and they would last the trip. So they would salt them usually, but they found that that significantly helped the scurvy and the energy and the anemia and the bleeding and bone and all the things that the sailors were experiencing, so that they were getting much healthier. And keep in mind, the salt then was sea salt. So it actually had a balanced amount of minerals in it, including kelp and the sea
Hmm.
vegetables in it. Now we've refined it so much that it has very little of that. It's just sodium chloride, and there's very little of any of that stuff unless they add it back in, unless you're getting like a pink salt, a Himalayan salt, all these fancy salts. That sea salt is still the number one best choice for us. So modern days, because we don't go to that extreme of deficiency for the most part anymore, is you will see easy bruising, bleeding gums, and you will see lowered immune system. And the problem with the lowered immune system, especially when vitamin C is involved, you're actually more prone for pneumonia. And so the problem they find most often in people who are vitamin C deficient is if they get infected, more often than not, they die of the infection if they're vitamin C deficient. So, what a surprise, in China and other places, when they have done IV vitamin C in these particular times with any kind of illness, but we have historically already found works for viruses and cancers. IV vitamin C can really, really help the immune system. And if your immune system is able to fight off whatever it is you're fighting off, then you're going to be stronger overall and not be susceptible to whatever comes around. So it's interesting how these basic nutrients are coming up with the current illness. They are being suppressed, in my opinion. Is It's there, the research is there, the researchers
Hmm.
are working on it, they're giving them to patients, but you don't hear about it. You're just not hearing about it. It's always, we got to do this drug, we got to do that drug, we got to do a VAXE thing. and
Yeah.
and it's interesting because it really could be just about being nutrient rich right now. And so zinc and vitamin C right now are probably the most important, but not to the exclusion of others. Whole food, whole fruits and vegetables, leafy greens, they're rich in all these things too. Anything that grows in the sun, anything that has a nice strong color, you already know it's a win. But vitamin C, remember, really should be raw if possible. And that's easy when it comes to fruit. Some people, not so much with the vegetables, they want to cook them. And digestively, if you can't break down a vegetable, you really should cook it or steam it at the least, so that you can
Sure.
get to the nutrients, because our ability to break it down matters.
Well, I was speaking with a client the other day, and they said their great grandmother's recipe for the common cold was to chop up grapefruit, oranges, and boil it down,
Hmm.
rind and all.
Hmm.
Add a little bit of honey so that it wasn't quite so bitter, and 3 drops of apple cider vinegar per quart. He had this recipe like memorized, and he said that was his dosage when he was a kid. If he would get a cold, he would be fine the next day. And I recall from our conversation that the grapefruit, which is up above my head, um, has the properties, or the quinolone. Am I saying that right? The quinine
True.
are in that grapefruit. And so it all of a sudden I start putting these things together going, his great grandma wasn't so far off.
Hmm.
And we really don't teach those things in schools today. I don't know that the current public education has really much in the way of home economics or nutrition classes or things. I'm a little bit removed. My kids have been out of school for a few years. So,
Well, the nutrition they do have when they have it is more the molecular science part. So they know that zinc is good or that's good, but they don't have those nice old time home economic home recipes. So not only is the rind of grapefruit good with the quinolones, but so think of the hydroxyquinolone medication, but it's also high in quercetin, and we've got these bioflavonoids that come through this kind of protocol. And then the apple cider vinegar is changing the pH. Even though it's a vinegar, you think it actually helps our alkalinity. It helps, acidity will enhance inflammation, and now apple cider vinegar will decrease that. So you're getting all those benefits, enzymes, minerals, vitamins. You're finding the best way to absorb it and drive it into the cells with a recipe like that. Yep.
I know when my kids were younger, and maybe you find this with your own daughter, but there are times that they will absolutely refuse to eat food, or that they crave food. And I have tended to follow their kind of body's intuition and give in to that a little bit. Number one, I didn't necessarily want the argument or fight with them about the food, as long as it wasn't, macaroni and cheese all day, every day. Not happening. But if they were tending to want mandarin oranges,
Mhm.
okay, let's go get the bag of oranges. And so I would kind of allow them some say, because in my opinion, even now my own body will tell me, I may not be as aware, why I'm craving strawberries or why I'm craving the citrus fruits, but I'm thinking it's probably the vitamin C.
It's possible your body is definitely going to give you signals for that, even if it's craving things that we would term maybe bad, like craving salt. Craving salt is saying, I need minerals, which if it wasn't commercialized salt and it was truly sea salt, you could imbibe in. You could actually do a pinch of that in your water or in your food. And you would find that it would satisfy that craving. So not all cravings are bad. Craving for fat, it could be you need something for your nervous system. It could be you need something for dry skin, dry hair. So a craving is appropriate. You don't have to overindulge. The American way is a little is good, a lot is better.
Well,
And
sea
yeah.
salted caramel is fabulous, but
Well, and
not.
that's the thing, is the commercial producers have recognized that when we like something, then we want more of something, and they're trying to addict us because they want us to buy those things. So sea salt caramel, yeah, I mean, that's like a perfect combination. You got
It,
the
isn't it? It's got the
mouthfeel,
fat.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
got the fats, it's got the salt and the sweet. And even sweet, craving for sweets is one of the five flavors in Chinese medicine. It is a balanced flavor. So a little sweet is good. We can do that. It is appropriate to add something in our diet that is doing that. Otherwise, you're always doing four flavors and never the fifth. The problem is we tend to overindulge on the one, which in turn imbalances the rest. And
Sure.
it's everything's about balance. That's like copper and zinc. You can do copper, you can do zinc, but don't overdo either one of them, or you create a problem and consequences in another system in the body.
Well, we have seen this. I'm sure this happens with you as well as it does with me, where when you go to a even a medical doctor, they want you to bring in everything you're taking,
Mhm.
and it is important that people understand that all the different bottles of their supplements, and if there's overlap, they can be getting too much of a good thing, and so it is highly valuable to, even though it seems like it's a lot of grocery bags, sometimes because the bottles are voluminous, but to bring in and, sort through what's really needed. Because, our goal is to have people eating healthy, nutritional food, not necessarily having to take a supplement if it's all possible, if their body can absorb properly. So I do think that it's hugely valuable to have patients come to you with their supplements and their medications so that you can kind of sort through and be sure that they're not overdoing it.
That's what I would put into a well check or even a first office call for patients. I agree with you because sometimes we forget why we started something. We read something, we heard something, we had a condition going on. We run out of things and we forgot about them, and we realize it's not in our little pill sorter, and we could be becoming deficient in something. But we have to keep in mind that the word supplement, the idea is we're supplementing what we might not be getting from our diet. We know the food quality can be poor, especially if it's shipped and processed. We know that the soil can be poor, depending on what farming pro and what's in the skies, what can be occurring in the soil. Even if you are, say, for example, I used to have a little tiny booklet of nutrients and foods, and it was like A, C, D, E, zinc, and it would have this nice long list, and it was varying amounts of the nutrients in that food. The problem
Sure.
with that is it depends on where you grow it, if it's organic or not. So you can say, yes, cashews have such and such, but they might be higher in one region and less in another region. So you can get an estimate, but you can't get an exact. It's not always going to be the same. It depends on where the food
Sure.
is grown and sourced and transported and processed and everything else. But and then you mentioned, bringing in bags and boxes of
It happens.
bottles. The reason you have to look at the bottles and not just say, oh, I'm taking a vitamin C supplement. There's different forms, there's different doses. As you said, there's some overlap. I've had people, especially I've noticed with vitamin D and zinc and A. Those three can be a problem in that D and A are fat soluble. So once it's in your system, you can easily build a toxicity. It's not like the pee it out kind of thing. You can't watch your bowels for tolerance on that. It's something that can build up and create some problems. So it you want to make sure that you're not getting too much. And when D became the craze that everybody has to have D, which I'm all for that. We do. We're mostly deficient. But what I found was that it was added to your bone formula, it was added to your vitamin formula, it was added to your eye formula, it was added to everything. So if some people, everything they were taking had vitamin D in it to a point where yeah, that's a little too much. And again, the balance, if you have too much D, you can actually make too much calcium occur in your blood vessels. So if that occurs, then now you have the potential for inflammation and atherosclerosis, and say, whoa, slow that roll there. Um, and so it's good to have that check periodically to make sure that, we change brands, this is on sale, I read about that, and just to have it checked every once in a while by a practitioner who can understand the nutrients
Sure.
and pay attention to the forms. oh, you would absorb this better and not have to take as much if you had it in, say, adenylyl hydroxy B12 or methylated, instead of folic acid, folic acid, folic acid everywhere, or cyanocobalamin. And so
Mhm.
there's ways to evaluate the best uh, money for your best nutrient for your money, and keep in
Sure,
mind it's supplemental. I would agree. I'd much rather do it by food,
for sure.
as long
I
as you have
know that
access.
there are times that I've taken a holiday, I'll call it, and I don't necessarily know why that particular supplement is in my basket, and I'll stop taking. I might continue to take my multivitamin that I need, and my multi-mineral that I know that I need, but the rest I'll just set aside. And I would say within about 4 or 5 days, the whatever thing, if I still needed that PABA, um, it will come back to me. And it's again, this is kind of a symptom for me. I get tight arms. My tendons get real tight, right? So, but the PABA was in my kinesiology book as being helpful, and so I started taking it, and lo and behold, it's helping the other B vitamins uh, absorb, and that tightness, stiffness goes away. So I do that periodically, take a pause, and just remind myself of
Mhm.
why that's there. And do I still need it?
Yep. So you have that as well. Sometimes we do need a break. Sometimes we need to let our bodies just have a rest from things and not overtake things all the time, so that you're not dependent on it and possibly are getting it from your food. But if your symptoms start to come back, then that's a good reminder. It, not only what symptom it helped, but also, oh yeah, I do find benefit from that when I take it. And so sometimes we're like, why am I spending this money? Why am I taking this? And or it makes you think, oh, well, can I find another way to do that? And if not, then I know what works.
And do I still need it? If I'm
Do I
not
still need it?
doing,
Yeah.
if I'm not gardening, if I'm not doing these things right now, is that still an issue for me? And I have
Right.
my
Could
answer.
be seasonal, could be situational. Yes.
Mhm,
Mhm.
for sure. Um, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, have a consult, lots now happening over video and FaceTime and just a regular phone call. I mean, however we need, smoke signals maybe not so great anymore. We're a little lax in our smoke skill abilities. Um,
Uh,
but but they could contact you at the info at takecareuniversity.com, or your office number.
yes, my phone number 360-527-2812 is probably best, because I am doing telehealth and I can do video, Zoom, and I can do online as well as phone discussions or consults. So you don't
Great.
have to be techie. We can use this old fashioned phone.
Right.
I
And
like to see my patients because I miss being in person badly. There's a lot you can get from seeing a person, their face color, their expression. There's still things you can see. If someone's complaining of a rash, I got to see the rash. So you can get up close, and or losing hair or whatever. I mean, there's some things you can do that way. But yeah, we
you
can we can do all of that.
you might get an aha moment of fingernails when they check for their little white spots, maybe, or those kinds of things,
Yeah.
where they hadn't recognized.
Hmm.
The realization sometimes
Yeah.
is amazing to me with the signs from naturopathic and Chinese medicine.
Hmm.
Um, it kind of connects the dots. They've always wondered why that was there, and to watch that aha moment for the patient is really uh, enlightening for them.
Well, you do make a point in that the body actually has visual symptoms, and so looking at the eye, iridology, looking at the ear, looking at the tongue, feeling the pulse. Again, facial expression, skin, like bumps on the back of the arm. You think maybe vitamin A, vitamin C. I mean, seeing the person does matter. In my visits, I'm checking the pulse usually. And when I'm doing that, I'm also checking the nails. They don't know that, but I'm doing that. And I'm also looking at their facial expression and that kind of
Sure.
thing. And so, and how I feel when I'm with that person, because that tells me their vitality
Oh,
a great
yeah.
deal. If I'm feeling tired and sluggish and yawny, I'm like, oh my goodness, this person's tired. And those things lead me to ask the questions. And they might say, no, I feel great. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm tired. But so it at least helps me ask. It's like
Mhm.
I'm feeling the pulse. I'm like, feel the liver excessive. Well, do you have menstrual problems? Do you have headaches? Things that maybe they didn't come in for, but oh yeah, I do have those. And so that gives me more information about the body.
Yeah. And
So
that's
yeah, it's good
I
to see
really
people.
I appreciate having my medical practitioner, my nurse practitioner, a physician, but I also have a dentist and I have a acupuncture person and a naturopathic person, and it's just part of my whole team of taking care of me. And that's I encourage that for anyone to include a naturopath or an acupuncturist, or right along with their dentist and there's a place
Hmm.
for a team, and especially now, I think that it's super helpful to understand where your body is at, because we've been stressed, but we've mostly been at rest, and so as we're mainstreaming back to what life will be like on the other side of this, you know, we're almost the first week of June or May here, so it feels more like June. Gosh, it's going to be like
I know.
near 80 over the weekend. But I think that this time is allowing us to reset, and with food is a wonderful way to reset.
Yes, there's so much about our psyche involved with food, that food is matter and it matters very much in all our health, good, bad, ugly, everything. And even if you took supplements to improve something, medications, drugs, food is your maintenance so that you're not dependent on that.
Well, we tend as a society to celebrate with food.
Yes, we do that.
We
So
gather with
yeah,
food.
we do.
We,
Yeah.
whether we're having a, a picnic or a birthday or a celebration of some kind, religious or not, there is generally food involved. And so it is all around us. I think it's really helpful to have healthy food all around us.
Food
And
is a gift. It's a gift from the earth. It's a gift we give ourselves. It's a gift we give to others. Food is a gift. And frankly, the whole idea of famine and starvation, if everybody did a little bit of food growing, and yes, they might need help as far as water access and sun access, that kind of thing. But potentially, if everybody grew a little bit of food, none of us would starve. None of us. Soon as we do this mega farming and have someone else control it, then some have some and some do not.
it becomes a distribution problem rather than a neighborhood garden problem.
Correct. So hopefully we'll soon do a segment on just neighborhood gardening things because yeah, we do have a food distribution problem right now. Farmers had plenty of food and we have food distribution problems. So that's going to have consequences unless you are hooked up locally and grow something or know people who grow something and help them give some, get back. It's a gift.
Well, and I'm hoping, as we're kind of navigating through these times, have lots of. I grew up in Wisconsin, so there have been an extraordinary number of farmers who are dairy farmers who are not dairy farming any longer. And they've perhaps had to go back to work in another arena. But I've heard a few of them now say, I might have had dairy cows before, but I can now shift and raise cows in a different way or raise animal in a different way for food supply rather than for milk. And it doesn't mean they're going to be a wide distribution, but they will have a local distribution. And we have several organic farms for poultry and beef and buffalo, all here in the Pacific Northwest. So it might take a little bit more work, uh, but we can find it. And I hope that people will take this time to think differently about how they can fill those needs in their local area, because maybe it doesn't have to be a distribution problem.
It doesn't have to be a distribution. If we kept it local, if everybody kept it local, we would have access to foods that are appropriate for our environment. We would have less things done to the food to allow longer storage, longer transportation. We would have more nutrients because we're not processing it as far. We might not be heating it or cooling it or whatever we're doing that would be the opposite of the nutrients. So we potentially have better quality food. Not even potentially. We for sure have better quality food if we keep it local. So, and then we can bypass and go, distribution problem, not my problem. Now, not everybody has to be a farmer at
Right.
all, but I do recommend everybody grow some kale or lettuce or tomatoes, whatever your favorite one thing is. Pick one, and do that, or find out what the neighbors in your neighborhood are doing and do what they're not doing so that you can all trade out.
Mhm.
How many people have ever grown zucchini and never had enough zucchini? You usually have enough for the whole
Whole
block.
neighborhood, yeah,
Oh,
right?
yeah, when it comes, it comes. And when it has to be picked, it needs to be picked now. So maybe you would be the one to say, I'm going to come help you pick your beans or squash or whatever. And then you
Sure.
will, I guarantee you'll come home with something. I
Well,
guarantee
it's
it.
when my kids were little, we grew a salsa garden.
Hmm.
So, tomatoes and peppers, and, so I was concerned when I moved to Washington because I heard you can't grow a tomato here to save our lives, because we just don't have enough sunlight. Well, we didn't have any problem. We really didn't. The jalapenos were a little bit of an issue, so those, we had to go to farmer's market for or find elsewhere. Those I couldn't quite get growing. But you're right. I mean, peas and beans and different types of, we may not be able to have an orange tree in the backyard, but seasonally we should be able to
Apples.
have. Yeah.
Especially if you have a good producing apple tree, I guarantee you, when it comes time to harvest those apples, unless you want them all to be fallen apples, you need to harvest them pretty much all at once, very close together. And it takes people. And it's easy to give somebody a basket or a box or a barrel of apples in payment. Or you get together and you make the apple sauce and then everybody
Mhm.
takes home applesauce. I mean, there's different ways to do things. I have to say on
Absolutely.
that salsa garden, I've failed miserably because for me, the tomatoes and peppers ripen far later. My cilantro bolts long before. So in my head, it's like, how can you make a cilantro garden when they ripen at different times? So I've learned cilantro more shady. Don't let it bolt. Don't plant it too soon. But if it bolts, now you have caraway seeds. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it was good. And we use a lot of cilantro in our family, so it's a big bush.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. I gave up on the salsa garden.
Thank you so
So
much for your time today, Dr. Grobe.
okay, thank you. It
If
was
you need
fun.
to be in, thank you. If you need to be in touch with Dr. Grobe, 360-527-2812. I'm Marie Matson, and you can find me at Matson, Matteson, communications.com. I do biofeedback and kinesiology and lots of other fun uh, body related things. Not so much massage anymore, and it's okay.
Saves your
Life is
joints.
like my forearms are not as sore as they used to be. Thanks
Yeah.
for your time. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Bye bye.